The 12th, and I'm going to call this meeting to order. It's a regular meeting of the Laketown Township Board of Trustees. And our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd please rise, and if Chief Denbiker could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chief.
Well,
Next item is review and approval of the minutes from the August 5th meeting of the Board of Trustees. Hearing no one else, I'll move to approve the minutes as presented. Thank you, Mr. Hayden, for recording them.
I will second that.
Motion seconded by Trustee Kuman. Any discussion?
I think the only discussion point I have there is, I know we talked and voted on the interurban. And I see it's on the agenda tonight, but I assume that's because Mr. Johnson was not here that we talk about it.
I don't think we voted on the interurban last week.
We did a vote whether to have it on the meeting for today or not. And it was
No.
Well, the vote was to move the meeting to Monday.
Monday.
Okay.
And then we didn't do that. And the reason to move it to Monday was to be able to vote on if we wanted it on the millage, which we didn't. So then that would be.
Okay, perfect. All good to vote then.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Passes 4-0-5-0. So we have some presentations tonight. Some of the agendas are incomplete, but first we're going to have the audit presentation by Siegfried and Crandall, the auditors for Laketown Township. Then we're going to have a presentation on the status update of Felt Mansion and Friends of Felt Estate by Beth McEwen. And then we're going to have a short presentation by Republic Services, John Mahoney, on this current status and things going on with COCO. Take it away, Josh.
All right, will do. Thanks for having me back this year to do your audit. I'll just go through a quick overview of the audit and the audit report. Feel free to stop me anytime if you have questions. But I'll start right at the beginning. The first page of the report is the independent auditor's report. That's what you hired us to come in and do, is give a report, our opinion on the report. So the first two paragraphs there use a lot of words to say that you guys passed the audit with an unmodified opinion. And then it lists how we came up with our opinion, and then it lists the responsibility of management, you as the board, that these are your financial statements that we helped you prepare. And then to get to the more fun stuff, the number part, I'll start on page 6. This section is called the MD&A. It basically gives words to all the numbers that are in the statements below. But the one I get asked the most about on is the third bullet point at the top there, the unassigned fund balance as a percentage of expenditures and transfers for the year. And at March 31st, the township's at 97%, so basically 100%. So basically your fund balance or your savings over time is equal to about a year's worth of expenditures. So if for some unforeseen reason no revenues came in, you could keep operating as is for a year. So just like a personal budget, most people want 3, 6, 9 months in there. So the township's almost got a year. So I think that's a very solid number and right on par with a lot of the other townships that we work with. And then I'm going to skip a few pages because, like I said, this is more just like a narrative. and I'm gonna try to do that myself. So if we can go down to page 14 and 15, these are the balance sheet and income statement for the funds. This is where most of the decision-making comes down to. The first is the balance sheet, so this at March 31st, that on that date, what assets, liabilities, and fund balance the township had. Broken down into the major categories there: general fund, the fire, roads, drains, and bike path fund, and then your other smaller funds. You can see the township had about 2.6 million in cash at year end, 200,000 in receivables or money that was owed to you at March 31st. Payables of about 80,000, money you owed to others for costs incurred before March, but paid in April. And then the accounting equation, assets minus liabilities, get you your fund balance. So there's that 1.9 million that I mentioned earlier, for unassigned fund balance in general fund. The drains and bike pass has a little over 600,000 at year end. That's restricted for those purposes, laid out in the millage. And at the bottom half of that sheet, we are required by our standards to give the long-term assets and liabilities of the township too, and those are listed below. So you see the fund balance of 2.8 gets carried down, and then we add in capital assets, so items the township has bought over time that have a useful life of more than a year. So you can see over $8.5 million worth of bike paths, parks, this building, other assets like that. Liabilities on those assets, 185,000 left to pay on those assets. Includes compensated absences. So you can see your fund balance goes from 2.8 million to almost 11 million when we add in those long-term items.
Josh, what are non-major funds?
So there's a big math equation we do, and if their assets and liabilities are under 5% of the total, we combine them into non-major funds. So you guys have a little debt fund.
That's the lighting one.
The lighting fund, yeah, there's 3 or 4. I can name them when we get further in the report, but yeah, basically it's the ones that aren't quite major enough to get their own columns on the face of the statements. Yep. So the next page is the income statement. So this is the entire fiscal year from April 1st, 25 to March of 26. And then what happened revenues and expenditure wise. So the same major fund categories there. The major revenue of the township is property taxes at 2.7 million. Second highest is state grants, mainly state shared revenue of just over 600,000. You can see general fund and the bike pass fund make up a majority of that with almost 2 million each in revenues. Expenditures, just about the same. Going down below, general fund spent 1.9 million and the bike path and road spent 1.2. And then this year there's other financing sources that's probably more unique, doesn't happen very often. $400,000 sale of a township property. So fund balance and general fund went up $400,000 this year. The bike path went up 600,000, and in total, all the funds went up 1.1 million during the year. And then again, at the bottom, we have the reconciliation from the short-term outlook to the long-term, where we add in assets acquired, the basis for the sold property, the provision for depreciation, and the principal payments on the long-term debt. Then 2 pages after that is 17. This is, I keep calling it newer, but it's probably 5 or 6 years old now. GASB made us put in this report that shows taxes collected at the township that never come into the township. So it's the taxes you collect for schools, the state, the county. You can see almost $19 million came into the Treasurer's Department and out, but is not an asset of the township ever. That's we see that number some places we go, it's 2 million, some it's 45 million, but so 15 is quite a bit of money going through here.
It's a wash, right?
Yep, you're just the agent for it. You collect it and then you pass it on to who it's owed to. Yep. And then the next couple pages just go through and they break down, again, a lot of the numbers we just went over in more detail and by item. So I'm not going to hit those again. Then the last one I like to focus on is the budget, the budgetary comparison for general fund. It's on page 27 and 28. It breaks down those revenues we saw on the income statement in more detail. Gives the original and final budget, the actual, and then a variance column. So the state cares more about expenditures than they do revenues when it comes to budgeting. So that's where I like to focus my presentation on, as well as the expenditures on page 28. You see the final budget column there, and then the actual, in the variance column, you're looking for a positive number there, saying you were under budget, so if you look through there, almost all of them are positive numbers, except for the principal payment this year, because when the property sold, you had to pay off the remaining debt with those proceeds, and that wasn't reflected in the budget. But the positive part is at the bottom there, the net change in fund balance. It was anticipated with the final budget to increase fund balance by 114,000, but what actually happened is fund balance went up by 400,000, or a positive $298,000. Went into fund balance over what was anticipated. So those are all positive things as I see it. The last two pages are those non-major funds, the sewer connection, water connection, and the Castle Park water debt funds are all considered the non-major funds.
Hey, Josh, real quick.
Yep.
Page 27, the licenses and permits,
Mhm.
all of those being negative numbers. Do you know why, or?
Like the inspections, this is the biggest number there. So the building, electrical, mechanical permits, those are very hard to guess during the year what those are going to come in at. It all depends on how much new growth is in the township, how those get pulled. So there's really no positive, negative with that. It's just you give it your best guess and you reevaluate as the year goes on. So the franchise fees are the quarterly ones. So those are a little easier to guess, but again, 14,000 plus or minus in the revenues isn't a big deal. That's the way I see it.
Josh, bottom of page 21, that last paragraph. I was reading into that a little bit. Is that anything to be alarmed about, or is that normal?
That's very normal. So basically the banks the federal FDIC coverage will be 250,000 per bank.
Right.
For your funds. And that only comes into effect if the institution where your money's at closes and
Right.
declares bankruptcy, and you won't get paid back other than that. So yeah, in a perfect world, it'd be nice if that was all covered, but I also haven't seen a major bank close in Michigan since I've started doing this. So I don't know, I always struggle to say like you should.
So basically,
Yeah,
you have to
zero.
notate it as, hey, you're at risk,
Yeah,
but
our standards say we have to
Right.
list this number and calculate it, but the only way you get over $2 million covered is to split it among a lot of banks, $250,000.
So what you didn't know is we have an account where the bank splits it amongst many other different banks. So we've been assured it's fully insured.
Insured of some way, yeah, that's
But that
right.
happened after March 31st.
Okay, so yeah, next year,
And that's a
that'll-
relatively newer,
like a
development.
sweep account or
Yes.
yeah, okay. Yep, I've seen those other places, those are becoming more popular, because then, yeah, like you said, they do that every night for you. They split your money among a bunch of different institutions, so, yeah. Yeah, that's basically all I have for the report. The audit went real smooth, like it has the last few, even with new people. So got a good staff here.
Thank you. You want to touch on the fire department?
Yeah, I don't have the report in front of me, but I know this year was much cleaner than last year when dealing with the state. There was no deficit to go over. I know you remember like every fire department we go to has this, but fire trucks are taking 2 and 3 years to build, and they want money up front to save your spot in line, and they're getting to be really big numbers now with those fire trucks, but no, it's same thing. The audit went smooth. Financial position improved quite a bit for the fire department, and we didn't have to file deficit elimination plan this year, so all good things there.
They finally let us go, huh?
Yeah, right, exactly.
We're paying.
Yeah. All right, well, if no one has questions, I'll let you guys move on.
Anybody else have questions? Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Gosh,
Josh, so real quick, I have one question.
yeah, I have a
Oh,
quick one too.
yeah, go ahead.
Did you have a chance to talk to anybody on the board in the course of doing this audit?
No, nope, I didn't talk to any board members this year.
If we have you back, you should talk to board members.
Okay. With questionnaires or just a sit-down conversation? Yeah, we can do that.
And then when I get a chance to dig into this even deeper, if I had a question, are you available for?
Yep, phone call, email, either one. Yep.
Thanks for coming out tonight.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks. Beth McEwen.
Good evening, guys. It's been a minute, so good to see you all. I hope you had a chance to review the documentation I sent ahead of time. So I'll just kind of do an overview, and then if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them, or you can always connect with me afterwards. So first, let's start with the good news. The East Portico investigation, which was pushed to the forefront because of concerns about structural condition and deterioration in public safety. The key finding was that it is structurally stable and safe for continued public use. So that is fantastic. However, the immediate concern right now for that area is water infiltration through the roof and flashing. So the consultant recommends replacing that. And with the roof replacement and some near area masonry work, we're probably looking between $18,000 and $25,000, which means that based on last year's fundraising, the Friends are prepared to fund that part of the restoration without needing to tap into any assistance from the township. So the remaining portico restoration cost estimate is approximately $175,000 and can be phased over the next 3 years. So that is great for us to kind of be able to continue to build our reserves and fundraise and seek out grants to help us with that. So all good news on that front, which means the next major priority is the west vestibule. The west face of the mansion is probably what many of us most identify with. That's where the approach kind of comes in from the drive. And that is an area that we have active water infiltration. So these last couple of rainy weekends, we've had some buckets out. So we just finished the investigation of that and got the report literally this afternoon, which again, I'm happy to forward along. The sort of synopsis is that it is what we expected to find. The steel lintels, so like the top part that goes over the windows and doors, has rusted. And as steel rusts, it expands. And so it's called rust jacking. And rust jacking has displaced a whole bunch of the masonry around those windows and doors under that balcony. In some areas, as many as much as 2 inches out of plumb. So that is a pretty sizable concern and is something that we need to look at addressing sooner rather than later. However, there's also encouraging news. The inner masonry appears largely unaffected, and the basement wall in that vestibule showed no significant deterioration or structural distress. So structurally, we're good. The interior finishes should be good. So it really is just that exterior portion that we'll have down to about the bottom of the windowsills and reconstruct. The recommended project is pretty substantial, so reconstruction, and when we're doing that, pulling out those windows and doors and restoring those at the same time. So we have already received $21,900 from the Michigan Arts and Culture Council, which was fantastic. And we have to use that by December 31st. So we will certainly be working on the plans and the sort of project scope for that and the design work that needs to happen for that, and then be looking to bid these projects out. So to that end, we have developed a relationship with EV Construction. EV Construction has a long history with the property. They built the seminary school that was there. They modified the mansion way back when the nuns were there. So we have a long history with EV. And they have committed to construction advisory services as an in-kind contribution through May of 27. So they will help us with project scope, building, contractor qualification, bid review, construction oversight, invoice review, and project closeout. So all of those pieces that, as much as I would like to think that I am capable of, it does not hurt to have an expert in our corner. So then we also have Restore Consulting to provide the historic preservation, architecture, and the engineering expertise. So together, we have professional preservation, engineering, and construction management capacity all sitting at the table around these projects. So that really, for my purposes, gives me great confidence in how we move forward and how we tackle these projects. Which brings us to a potential building committee. So EV has recommended, and the board of the Friends also agrees, that a small and nimble building committee that is agile enough to respond quickly to field conditions and construction decisions would be really helpful when we get into that construction process. EV has offered a member of their executive team to participate on that. We have a historic architecture and historic preservationist now on our board who is willing to sit in on that with us. And our thought is that a member of Laketown's Building Authority would be a natural fit for that, seeing as the Building Authority holds the deed. So as we move forward, that is something that we will want to figure out what's going to work best and be able to plug in some township representation into that small building committee. So I guess the larger point today is that we haven't had to tap into what you have set aside for us yet. We are grateful that you have done that, and really I'm going to pat ourselves on the back a little bit for the work that we've been able to do to not have to tap into that yet. So we're not just looking to spend whatever we can. Wherever we can, we are really intentional about approaching these projects, doing the discovery, and deciding where is it going to make the most sense for your funding to be leveraged appropriately. So stay tuned as we get some pricing and bids going. We'll probably be back with updates. Any questions?
Are you looking for us to appoint someone from the Building Authority? Because I know Lynn Kobes of the Building Authority is very interested.
Okay,
Said yes to being on the
that
construction.
would be great if Lynn is interested, and that if you guys feel like that serves your purposes, then we would love to have her on that committee.
I was kind of thinking that maybe I'd volunteer since I'm in that world every day. And I compete with EV every day, and they're good people and I know them well. And so sometimes it's not a bad thing to have a fox guarding the hen house sort of thing. And
Yeah. I could see that.
I just don't know the time commitment and what that would be, but I know the construction world very well.
And I would think when it comes to the actual time period where we're going to need that responsive sort of, making decisions on the fly is going to be during active construction, which will likely be in the off season for most other construction world stuff. So, early winter and late spring is probably where we'll be most active. So what was your question? I'm sorry.
I said I was interested too, but you're an ex officio member too of the building authority, so that.
Especially having a treasurer as well. That'd be good. Just want to thank you. I think
It's of interest, that's good.
I think
that's great.
you've done a great job of just being transparent about things. I think people are waiting for that transparency. So we appreciate you and run us through that and the work you've done to secure fundage.
Absolutely.
I
And keep
agree
working on
with-
what I can to leverage whatever grants we can and be the least amount of burden possible and still be able to protect and steward this amazing piece of history for Laketown.
Oh, this is definitely I don't want to say last time was bad, but this time, this is so much more, I would say informative, as far as the details go. It really gets us filled in.
Yeah. And it's always good when we have good news to share, that
Yes.
we don't have to worry about public safety. We don't have to worry. Nothing is imminently falling
Right.
down around us. So. All right.
Thanks, Beth.
Thank you.
Next up, Mr. Mahoney from Republic Services.
Good evening. Thank you for fitting me into the agenda. My name is Tom Mahoney. I'm the General Manager for Republic Services West Shore Recycling and Transfer Station. And I'm here tonight to thank you and ask for further assistance. So it's my understanding that this afternoon, the township issued a stop work order to cocoa composting. And we appreciate the township taking this key enforcement action against cocoa, but there's still more to do if we're going to resolve the problem. We are concerned that even with the stop work order, odors may continue to negatively impact the township residents. Additional steps against cocoa must be taken. Today's order to cease active operation only resolves part of the issue. Cocoa must also be compelled to clean up the site, to not abandon it, and to not leave a mess in its wake. Therefore, I'm asking the township to take some following or additional steps. First one is don't allow cocoa to bring new material to the site and require them to finish the compost process. Require cocoa to haul unprocessed compost to another site that does not negatively impact the residents, and demand that they comply with all existing permits, any local regulations, and applicable state laws during the closure process. So we share the frustration of the township residents and the board who have repeatedly complained about odors emanating from cocoa's operations. In June, when the Planning Commission voted to terminate cocoa composting's operations at our recycling facility on 60th Street, Supervisor Ringelberg, you were quoted in the media saying, "Cocoa has abandoned its obligation under the township's planned urban development agreement." We completely agree with you. During the Planning Commission hearing, I stated that Republic Services had filed a lawsuit against cocoa composting, demanding that the company cease operations and leave. Unfortunately, the courts did not grant our request for a restraining order. So instead, the judge stated that the township and Eagle have jurisdiction over cocoa's operations. And so cocoa has continued to operate unimpeded. Republic Services, so what this means is our hands are tied at this time. The township, we ask that you continue to act. Republic Services has continuing concerns about cocoa's refusal to operate under the rules and regulations of the PUD. We will continue to pursue legal remedies for breach of contract, but a court resolution on that issue is going to take time. Republic Services operates its recycling and transfer station in compliance with state and local rules and regulations. We strive to be good neighbors and we care about the community. This situation with cocoa composting has gone on for far too long. I implore you to use whatever enforcement powers are at your disposal to ensure that orderly closure of cocoa's operations in the township. We stand ready to work with the township in any way necessary. And I just want to thank you again for your time today to address the board and to give you an update on where we're at in the legal process with cocoa composting. Not sure if you have any questions. If you do, I'm here. If not, we're available at any time. But we do appreciate you guys taking the action, and it really helps show the support that the township is giving Republic Services and its residents. Thank you.
So are you actually gonna chain off the entrance?
It's a shared entrance with my operation. I can't chain it off. We are working with our legal team to find out what we do. We have a contract dispute with Coco. And at that point, from our interpretation, and I'm not an attorney, we have to continue to work through the courts on that contract dispute. And that's why the judge has made the statement that Eagle and the township have the ability to take action rather than Republic Services at this time.
It's interesting because we also have a contract dispute with Coco, which is because the plan unit development
Correct.
agreement is a contract.
Correct.
We also have, you know, difficult to enforce ordinances about noxious odors, which
Understood.
difficult to go in and get a really clear order on. So we can issue all the stop work orders we want, but if they're still driving the trucks in.
I will say that I have not had a chance to speak with our attorney based on today's actions, and my response may be different. I just could only speak to what had happened prior to today.
That would be good if you could find out and be in touch with
Yep, I'll get
manager.
for sure, absolutely.
Is one of the concerns that they will get to a point where they'll just up and leave and
Yes.
leave everything behind? Is
Yeah.
that a
That's-
pretty big worry?
That's a concern of ours for sure. And that's why one of the asks that we would have is that they finish the composting process. And I believe you had asked that in the previous hearing is there a concern if they just walk away, what happens with that? So yes, because then it would fall under us to.
Yeah,
to
because
take
you're
care
in
of
that contract too,
Yes,
right?
correct.
So at the end of the day, it's gonna get cleaned up. The question is who's bear the cost.
I believe that that's the biggest, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mahoney.
Yes, thank you. Once again, appreciate you making a change on the agenda, and I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. And
Next up, Allegan County reports of other offices, Allegan County Commissioner Craig Van Beek. Thank you, Commissioner Van Beek.
Good evening, everyone.
Thank you for your report, and no, it wasn't too late.
Yeah, sorry. Sometimes my other job pulls me away, so I apologize for that, for being a little bit late. So just a few things. You saw the construction projects we're working on, a couple there. Beyond that, tomorrow we're going to start to talk about budget. One thing that Jim Johnson, you had asked me, I think a couple months ago about ACT, if talking about expanding it. I don't know if I answered that. So I went and looked into that a little bit more. So where kind of we are with that at this point is we would need another funding source. So I am a proponent of transportation. And so that's something that the commissioners are going to start to talk about, because beyond transportation, we had that survey go out about county parks and that people would be interested in funding county parks. So at some point, we have to decide how we're going to fund these things, whether it's going to be through a millage. Allegan County doesn't levy all the taxes we could levy. Even if we do levy the max we could levy, it's not enough to fund all those programs. And so I don't really like that option. That feels more like we're slamming these ideas down people's throats. So I don't love that. I really would prefer more of the option of letting people kind of weigh in to see where they want dollars to flow. But we're going to continue to work on that. Mark, a couple months ago, we talked about invasive species in the ditches. Remember, you had asked me about that, something we could do. So looking into that, talking with the conservation district, found out a little bit more of that for you. So the conservation district, 33 feet from the center of the road, if you call and say you have invasive species in those ditches, that was all taken care of. They send out the strike team to be able to take care of that. If you have invasive species further up into your yard, they will take care of those. Those are at a cost, but all you have to do is call the conservation district and they will come out to do that. And so I can send you some materials from them. So I've asked them, I made sure I understand exactly what you're telling me. So I didn't want to misrepresent that when I explained that to you. In the Conservation District, one of the things, they're going to be on the ballot in November again to have their millage redone. And so we kind of held off putting that on the August into November because I wanted to be able to walk through a little bit more what all they do and what programs that they do. So the invasive species, they do some forest assistance program. There's some grant funding as well that they can do, some watershed management. And so they do some really good things, but I thought you'd be interested more in that invasive species. There's no charge if it's in the ditches for them to call them. So I thought I wanted to share that with you. Beyond that, I don't want to take too much more of your time unless you have a question for me. So.
Anybody have questions for Commissioner Van Beek?
You might have mentioned, if you did, I'm sorry, I missed it, but I think the senior millage passed pretty handily, right? Were there other millages that might impact us that were on the August ballot that?
No, just the senior millage is the only one that we put on. And then the back of the report, the last one, that last page, I'm trying to give you kind of updates on that because it's kind of come up that people see that. Those numbers that we help, and I talked to you guys about this before, those fluctuate because people come out of the hospital, they're eligible those for maybe 3-4 weeks, they drop off. Low income is always eligible when you hit a certain age, are eligible for those. You know, through that, we've tried to expand that. And those services really being the job I do beyond commissioner, I have people that use those services. So I know firsthand how important they are, having those people come in to give some of the caregivers a break, that they can go out, do some grocery shopping, do some things. They work, do some light cleaning. So that program is really good. And I'm really thankful for everyone that voted for that. As we'll continue to try to expand that program. I've challenged them to continue to expand and make that better.
I'm assuming that's somewhat related to the a little bit of a firestorm there was over the Meals on Wheels or the deliveries, and whether it was frozen or fresh and how many times a week. And is that kind of settled down, or is there still?
Yeah, I haven't heard any more. You know, the last on that, which I had reported to you, we had offered to come in, heat the meals for them. We actually had Meals on Wheels agree in their contract without raising the contract price that they would heat the meals. So they had a warm meal. Only one person at that time was taking us up for that, with over 300 and some people served. And so I haven't had any complaints. As I said, we found that some people are getting just one meal through this process. We had a small amount that realized they could use 2 meals a day. And so we've actually expanded a little bit, but I have not had a complaint since the first month, right? That transition period, which is expected when you transition a change, but I haven't heard anything since then. So it's been good. Okay.
Plus you guys were pretty responsive to the heat you got in terms of making the changes to do the heated meals, bringing in some microwave ovens and things like that. So,
well, and that's what, and Steve, you know this, if you ask me a question and you want me to do something and you want me to do it, like I jumped into it. You know, the heated meals, that them to come in and get heated, that was me pushing that, saying, how can we do this? How can we heat those meals? What can we do? And we looked at some options, and ultimately, you know, making that deal with Meals on Wheels was the best for everybody. And so they tell everyone that's an option. They'll come in, heat the meal for you and hand it to you. So
I think the only area where I'd like, if you could push a little bit, is still on the ACT to be a little bit more efficient, or take a look at having areas further north in the county. I did see 2 of them this week though, go around, so I just need to see it.
I'm on board with you, Mark. I'm on board with you. So you have an advocate for that. So I'm trying.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Commissioner Van Beek. Mr. Lanning, Chairman of the Laketown Parks and Recreation Commission.
It's great to be here tonight in person with each of you. Thank you for your work last month in getting us a new person to join the commission with the vacancy deal we had. One request as we go forward with it too, as we had a bit of it this time, was that any consultation with us as a Parks Commission for who it is we might be looking for, the kind of gift set, the opportunities would be greatly appreciated and welcomed. Some items coming up in next week's Parks agenda. Memba made a presentation last month and is looking at some new improvements for the Shore Acres Bike Park. We're going to continue conversation on that next week as far as some opportunities for us to come alongside and help. They're also going to be sharing with us more on some of the funding efforts that they have going on to make those improvements. New conversation. We're going to be talking a bit more about trail use at our parks and on the multi-use paths, e-bikes, dirt bikes, etc. As a resident living on the bike path, on the multi-use path, we have had some close calls with the e-bikes. We've also had go-karts, gas-powered go-karts that are running up and down the path. So I want to take a look at what we can address there. We've also had some reports in the parks that the e-bikes are now making their way onto the trails into our parks. And so something that we want to try to address. And we can't get ahead of it, but we sure can catch up to them rather quickly. I can't run as fast as those e-bikes, but I'm going to catch up to them. And we're going to, and I understand there's another committee, I think, in the township that's also looking at it. Planning, maybe, is what I had understood, possibly.
Bikes,
Yep.
I do not believe so.
No?
Don't remember us talking.
Okay.
It would be something for this board to look at because it goes to enforcement. Right?
Right.
So we currently have an ordinance that says powered vehicles are not allowed on multi-use paths.
Yeah.
Not sure about powered vehicles being prohibited from being in the parks, but I think that may be there. But it all goes to how do you enforce it?
Yep. Well, it's the, yeah, we feel like if we could put forth a policy or some kind of a change and not allowing them, we'd be at least one step in the right direction. But some of the reports that we're getting is of people who are walking on those trails, walking on the multi-use paths, and nearly getting taken out by a powered vehicle. So.
Yeah, is there, I can't remember, is there any signage anywhere that states that those paths are non-motorized only?
Not to my knowledge,
There?
and not consistently.
Yeah, there is.
On the multi-use path, not in the parks.
Yeah, I meant on those.
Oh,
Yeah, the ones that run along the streets.
Yep. So we're wrapping up and should have our memorial tree project ready to roll with a new brochure. Thanks to Jim Hayden for some of his work, a lot of his work on that project. We're also, I've asked each of the commissioners to come and identify additional spots for memorial benches. We continue to get a few more requests. Everybody really likes them at Sanctuary Woods, and we have plenty there. And so we're looking for other spots. And so the commissioners did a great job of pulling that material together, and we'll be addressing that as well next week. Believe that for the moment takes care of getting you updated on what we're up to in parks. Any questions that any of you have?
I
for
have
me?
2 questions, really easy ones though. Just to update on the beach stairs is number 1. Number 2 is what you started off at the beginning. How can we as a board do a better job at working with the Parks Department?
Well, we'll start with the beach stairs. Had a conversation with our contractor, Josiah Genzink, that the first set of stairs should be completed and be ready to be delivered and stored, as Josiah has promised to do, until we're ready to make the install shortly after Labor Day. So we're excited about that. Also having some conversations with Manager Fox in regards to being prepared for the construction season, the 3 or so weeks that we're going to need this fall to complete that project. And so trying to stay ahead of that as well and be as prepared as we can for that project, and minimizing any issues, safety concerns. And so with the construction that's going on and the use of the park. And then, yeah, I think connections, we have often said, and nobody needs an extra meeting, but you are always welcome to our monthly meetings. Our meetings are now recorded, so you can watch them and listen to them on any trip that you might be on, as I do with my job with some of these meetings that I can't attend. And it has been helpful with Manager Fox seated with us at the parks meetings and being able to make that connection. But it's also just staying in tune with the rest of you and making sure that you can come to us anytime with any questions you have about any of the questions or the things we raise for funding that we're looking for. If you have any concerns, we're all available. We're easy to talk to. So we just want to keep that line of communication open with each and every one of you.
Thank you.
Yes. Anyone else?
Thanks, Brad.
Great, thank you.
Manager Fox. Staff reports.
I want to start my report with a big thank you to Michelle Saul for going today and issuing the stop work order at Cocoa Composting. That was quite a task to do, and she accomplished it very well, and we're hoping that we'll have good success with it. We'll continue to talk with Ron and working with Republic to get them cleaned up and stop.
Get closer to the mic.
Sorry. And then I want to say thank you to Deputy Clerk Halem and Clerk Jim Delaney for an awesome election. It was very successful, and Zoe put together a report which is included in your packet. Good primary turnout, and there was the early voting day, so it was extra duties for both the clerk and the deputy clerk, and we appreciate all the assistance that Zoe put into that. And she went to the Board of Canvas and had a very good report from the County of Allegan, and that's great news for her. And then people are coming in and continuing to pay the summer tax bills. It's nice to see that people are greeted with smiles and friendliness and being able to write those tax payment checks, but seeing that everybody is so friendly in the office. So. And we're working with the Allegan County Road Commission on the sinkhole culvert replacement. The sinkhole has grown with the water conditions, and the Road Commission put up some big barrels for us and are looking for some other solutions for us. And then, as Brad mentioned, the Easy Beach stairs will be partially delivered this week. And then
I have a question on the beach stairs. Have they posted their performance bond yet?
no, but that is on my list, and I have talked to Josiah about that, so it'll be.
So the idea of a performance bond is that the bond gets issued before we pay them any money. Because it's the guarantee that if they take our money and don't perform the job, we can pull on that money and get another contractor. So they're months behind because we made the initial deposit, and that performance bond should have been delivered to us before we made the deposit. So that, to me, would be something to focus on intensely to make sure that the bond is provided.
Yes, I will talk to Josiah. And then we completed the DNR trust fund grant for the beach property and received the reimbursement of the $188,000 for that. So that was
Good.
Any other questions?
Just one on the sinkhole. We had a little conversation the other day about that. I understand the Allegan County Road folks suggested or told us that when that project was going on, that culvert should have been replaced. And I'm curious who ignored that advice, because now that it's being done, I'm guessing it's a lot more expensive than had it been done while everything was already being torn up and all the equipment was there. That feels like a fail to me that we didn't take the professional advice of the road commission.
Yeah, that was in 2024, over $1 million in that bike path. So yeah, it should have been replaced at that time.
Is there anything in writing that we got notified?
I asked for the emails. I have the emails from the road commission.
I assume they went to Mr. Meshkin.
Pardon?
They went to Mr. Meshkin or to?
I don't know. I guess I need to look and see who they actually went to. I just saw that it said they needed it to be replaced. So I assume Mr. Meshkin.
Yeah.
Maybe we can call their performance bond.
It's just kind of a gut punch when you spend $1 million on a path.
Exactly.
What if it
And
was? the
within a
board?
year or two, we're spending another
8,000.
38 grand.
What if it was the board that knew?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
That
I don't
would-
remember that going in front of the board.
Yeah, we'd never.
I don't remember that.
No, it
either.
wouldn't have been us. It would have been Mr. Delaney and Mr. Johnson.
We can blame it on them, but it's not gonna change things.
It wouldn't be the
That's-
first time.
I'm not sure.
Won't happen in the future.
What I would put is that this is a lesson for the board in terms of if that were to come up to us and we were asked to decide whether we wanted to pay to repair something in advance, because the culvert hadn't failed in 2024. It's fixing it in advance. That maybe that would have been the smarter choice to make at the time.
I think the bigger question is why, if it was recommended, why did it not? And who missed that one? Was it the contractor at the time, the company that did the work, and they just?
Or was it the engineer, or was it Mr. Meshkin?
Yeah.
or who?
Not to be a skeptic, but it's easier to say that we denied it and not show the information. So I think we check it out.
I know that we get reports from the road commission. So
Say that again?
we do get reports from the road commission. So.
But
I
It
don't
was we.
remember. Well, the board did, the board.
At the time. Yeah, so it may well have.
I don't know if it was the actual board members who got that or not. I know
It
that-
may have been the then board.
Yeah.
Right? Which you were two parties, but may not.
I will say, I don't remember that level of
I-
detail
I
ever
don't
getting
know,
to the
I think we
board.
would have kind of,
we would have known.
done.
We
what-
definitely
what-
did not.
You were not on the board at the time, Mark. I was not on the board. Mike was
That
not.
was
That's right. It's Jim's fault.
That's what I've been trying to say.
Let's leave it at that.
Yeah.
Thank you for your support.
Jim's, that's right, Jim's, yeah.
Right.
But there is an interesting legal angle about who knew. Because if it was the contractor who did the job and the township didn't know and the county knew, that's one thing. If it was the manager but not the board, if it was the manager and the board, then shame on that board. Right?
Hard time just with something like that, if it was recommended by the engineers to do it, I
I'm
just
sure. we
don't
would've done
understand
it,
why
yeah.
it would get ignored. That's the part where it gets confusing. to me,
matters
is
who
Why,
they-
why
who-
would it get ignored? And then now that it got ignored, now we have to pay extra.
That's why it matters who they made the recommendation to,
Right.
right? So if you could let us know, the board, the whole board, just let us know what you find out. Anything else for Manager Fox?
I think I missed my area here to add a motion to new business, but it was to do with, we had a conversation at drafting up a company vehicle policy,
A township vehicle policy,
a township vehicle.
personal use policy of township vehicles.
Yep. And I emailed that to Manager Fox, just our policy for assistance. But I don't think we need to make a motion on that to approve manager to draft up company.
I think if you want us to give her a directive to do it by a certain
I think
date,
for
we should-
formality, I would like to just throw that, take 30 seconds to add that to the new business and just vote on it.
We'll put it under new business.
I guess the only other question I had is, any status on the update of the benefits guide, the employee benefit? I know I volunteered to help with that, but I just wondering if anything, if you're ready for me yet, or,
I'm not ready for you yet, but I'm getting close. So.
okay.
Anything else for Manager Fox? Thank you, Manager Fox. Nebraska Fire Department Chief Denbliker.
For the,
By the way, if you would thank Deputy Clerk Hallam for preparing the elections report.
Yes.
It was a very nice summary, and I think she did a great job. She really did. And this entire board really appreciates all the help of the election inspectors who come out and volunteer to do the elections. So you could let Zoe know on behalf of the board that we all appreciate very much what she does and what all of her elections inspectors do. Sorry about that, Chief.
oh, no worries.
Little slow.
I got
tonight.
all night long.
Little slow.
Unless your radio goes off.
Don't jinx it.
Okay.
For the month of July, we had a total of 79 calls. No fire calls, but 10 medical rescue calls in Fillmore. 20 fire calls, 37 medical rescue calls in Laketown. We had 8 fire call assist, 2 to Holland, 2 to Hamilton, 2 to Park, and 2 to Saugatuck. 3 medical call assist, 1 to Saugatuck, 1 to Hamilton, 1 to the Sheriff's Department, and we had 5 assists to us from others. Pretty normal.
Chief, if you would remind me, I know we didn't have 20 structures on fire, excuse me, in Laketown. What kind of thing gets categorized as a fire? Versus medical. I know what the medicals are.
Yeah.
People
Fire.
fall down in their house and we go help them up.
Right.
Whatever.
Fire alarms, carbon monoxide alarm, wires down, smoke alarm install, anything basically that's not a medical call.
Is that a high number? Is that unusually high, 20?
No, it's
Okay.
been higher in the past. We just finally got our allotment of smoke alarms that we'd been waiting for a while. People that initially had the free ones installed back in 2014 and 15, it's now time for those to be replaced. So we're starting over on replacing some of those for the people that call.
Do you know how many actual fire calls there were, like fire out of the 20, roughly?
Fire. A couple of the assists were fires, actual fires,
Oh.
where we may have got partially there and they got it out before we got there. But I don't think anything up this way.
Who determined that? My last question, who determines the assist or whether you get dispatched to assist?
We've got auto aid and mutual aid agreements that are signed with our neighboring departments. So that's all that stuff is up in dispatch. When it hits a certain thing, they send out whoever for that area is auto aid or mutual aid. Cool.
Thank you, Chief. And as I sometimes forget, this board also really appreciates everything your department does, your paid folks and your on-call paid volunteers. So I think the training that they do really pays off, and we appreciate them very much.
We'll pass it along.
I will second that.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Next up is the July revenue and expenditure reports. And Stephanie, you have any highlights for us?
Nope, everything's looking really good and starting to look at the budget amendment, so we'll be able to bring that in for your approval in September. So
September is a great time to do it. You know, almost halfway through the year. And we've got some big numbers that are going to change, so that you're doing that.
Well, it looks like we may, as far as the police, which I'm assuming that's what we pay to have people at the beach, we may end up underspending the budget by quite a bit, which wouldn't be a terrible thing, but am I reading that right?
yes, we haven't had very many bills yet this summer, and hopefully we'll be able to do some enforcement with them.
It's a kind of a catch-22. I mean, yeah, you save a little bit of money, but on the very nice weekend days, we have severe parking problems on the west end of 138th going into Windermere, where lots of people who can't park in the state park park on the sides of the roads there and create kind of a narrow tunnel for the residents to come in and out and potentially cause emergency vehicles challenges to get back into that neighborhood. And the same happens at Laketown Beach. And the biggest count I've had this year so far, I think, was 126 illegally parked cars at Laketown Beach, in addition to the 45 legally parked cars. So, do you know, has the sheriff department hired, staffed up yet, or are they still down for deputies, or do you
I believe they're still down, but
yeah, part of the reason that it's real hard for us to get folks willing to work overtime and on weekends is because they're all working overtime already. So
they've been really good at like doing extra patrol on 64th Street for like the speeding and stuff. So when we ask them to do that, they've been very helpful.
How about
Try and help.
calls or complaints from the neighbors in terms of, wanting to see a sheriff, or are we getting those, or people been?
at Township Hall?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I haven't received any complaints besides parking and speeding.
Yeah, speed is a big one. So particularly if the residents along 64th Street who live on what is effectively a superhighway have some challenges there. And when you look at the speed data that we collect, you get people going 75 plus at certain times. And when you get an average speed up over, 60 miles an hour in a 55 zone, that's not so cool. Because to get that, you have to have a lot of people up over 70. So anyway, it's on that list of how do we crack the nut on enforcement of our ordinances in general, but in specific, STRs, parking, use of the parks, motorized vehicles on non-motorized paths. There's all kinds of challenges there. So
Junk vehicles.
junk vehicles, yeah. Blight.
So the only thing I would add is that, and I suspect this report will be updated and reflect the current status with our banking relationship. I did go in and close the account with Consumers Credit Union. It was about 200,000 and change. And that was rolled into our West Michigan Community Bank sweep account, which gets daily interest. The interest rate was almost the same, just a fraction difference. And our staff really prefers and appreciated to have everything in one account where they can see it and it's easy to manage and it's fully insured. So it made sense to do that.
Anybody else have questions for Manager Fox? Or does anybody want to move to approve the expenditure and or revenue and disbursements report in the P&L for the month of July 2026?
I would like to make a motion to approve the expenditure report for July of 2026.
So there's a motion to approve the revenue and expenditure report for the month of July 2026. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. That passes 5-0. Next up is public comment on new and old business. We have some correspondence that I could go through either at the beginning or afterwards.
Let's do it after he's Jones.
He's already up with it.
I'm already out. Tom Hookman, 4174 62nd Street. I guess I'm gonna call this old business, the cocoa issue. I don't know if that's, I would say it's old business anyway. I'm really disappointed in the fact that he didn't stay to answer questions. I think Republic is passing the buck to the township. There is more material there, and I may be totally speaking out of turn here. Right now, there's more material there than I have ever seen there before in my life. They are hauling it in all day long. There's got to be a way they can control who's going in and out of their yard. It's complete BS what's happening there. And I think they're trying to pawn it off on our legal team to pay the legal bills for their problems. It still falls on them because we have a contract with the Republic also. So I just wanted to put that out there because, you know, he talks a good story, but he's passing the buck on to you guys or us. And that it's got to stop. There's got to be a way to stop it. Because if they can't control the flow of traffic in and out of their property, that's a huge problem anyway. And I guess I have road commission stuff too, but I'll wait till the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hookman.
Mary Jo Bertolino, down the road. This year is the first year that I noticed that Holland has a volunteer traffic enforcement. I don't know, they drive around in a vehicle that says volunteer on it, and they give parking tickets to the people who are parking in non-parked areas or parking in handicap when they're not handicapped or whatever. Is there something that we could do that's maybe assign somebody from the town that can do that for us? Write the tickets, write town tickets, so that at least if we can't get a deputy there, we can get somebody there that can give them a ticket and have them pay the town. So just a suggestion. It's the first time I've seen them. I've seen them twice now driving around. Luckily, I wasn't.
Did you get a ticket?
No, I did not get a ticket. That's why I noticed is he was stopping and was giving tickets out.
Thanks for pointing that out. Anybody else in the room? Is there anybody online that would like to address the board on any new business, old business? If you would like to address the board, you just have to unmute your telephone. Mr. Hayden? Okay, with that, I'll close public comment. Next item of business is the correspondence. I don't have copies for everybody, but I will make sure that it gets distributed. But Manager Fox and myself and Michelle received a letter from a Laketown resident about 2 incidents of blight. That was from Doug Petter. And I also just today received an unsigned anonymous letter that I will give to the township manager and everyone to see about blight. And blight is one of our most challenging things to enforce. The easy ones are abandoned vehicles, because a vehicle is either an abandoned vehicle by definition or it's not. And there's a statutory definition of what an abandoned vehicle is. Junk is a harder thing, because one man's junk is another man's
Right.
art installation, right? And yeah. Anyway, but there are some incidents of blight that are very obviously incidents of blight. And there's a couple different things we can do. There is a home on 66th Street between 147th and 32nd Street on the east side of the road that we should probably call the county health department and see if they'll condemn it. It also has multiple abandoned vehicles in there. This property that is, this letter, the anonymous letter, is about 6242 146th Avenue. And again, focuses on inoperable vehicles. We received correspondence from Michael and Patricia Gentry about the disappointment that we did not appropriately handle the issue of putting funding for the public transportation to a public vote this November. And also expressing the fact that they were not happy we didn't continue funding the board or the interurban when we stopped it. And then email that came in to all of us from Kevin Alferink wanting to know why we're still talking about the interurban. And I think everybody on this board should know why we're still talking about the interurban, which is that in April of 2026, this board voted 4-0 to table discussions about the interurban until the August working group, when we would begin to revisit the issue. And so that was what this board's directive to itself was, to table it for those months. And that's why we're still talking about it. I don't have any other correspondence. Does anybody else? Okay. So with that, that will be the end of public comment. Since I shuffled my agenda into my entire, what are we doing next, Coach?
It says, old business employee benefits review.
I would like to take a 5-minute break, a bio break, and we'll start right back up in 5 minutes. So the first item of old business is employee benefit review. And you have in your packet a note from staff members and also a manager recommendation. And Stephanie, why don't you walk us through what you're looking to do here?
Respectfully requesting that the board approve the benefits of dental, vision, life, and accidental disability and long-term disability for the employees of Laketown Township. This has been a concern with some of the employees not being able to have the benefits available to them. And retaining qualified employees is very important to the township. And I feel that this will strongly help us retain valuable employees that have a lot of knowledge and experience. Recently, we have had one of our employees be contacted by another employer seeking their experience and wanting to have them work for them. So I think that it would be a good thing to offer this to the employees. There was a net savings from going to the pool. This is an expense of $14,000, but we would still save approximately $18,000. And another thing was that I would ask that the board revise the retirement policy. So any employees hired after a certain date wouldn't be entitled to that anymore. So that would save a considerable amount for the township, because anybody hired after, let's say, August 1st or September 1st wouldn't be entitled to that percentage of wages when they retire after 15 years. So that could be a considerable savings. I mean, some employees have received $50,000 to $100,000 on that benefit. So. Any questions? I'm sorry.
I have a comment, which is on the 75% turnover rate.
Mhm.
Do not believe that was due to benefits.
What was it
Right.
due to?
I don't think it had anything to do with that. We had an assessor leave who got recruited for a substantially better pay package, not benefits, but she also felt like her time here in Laketown was completed. She achieved everything she wanted to achieve, and she wanted to move on. Brett retired. It wasn't about anything to do with the pay. And
Two people retire that had very long, successful runs, maybe two for sure. And I'm thinking,
well, they were
Received
in
over
prior years.
$100,000 in retirement.
What's that?
They also received the retirement payment of over $100,000. So
Charlene and
not each.
yeah,
One of them
Charlene
did.
and Mr. Meshkin did, who that were eligible. Charlene in 2023 maybe paid out, which was when she officially retired. And Mr. Meshkin in the first quarter of calendar 2024 or 2025.
Mhm.
So I'm generally supportive of this, but I personally don't think we're ready to consider this.
What
I think
other information do you need?
I want to look at the entire benefit package. At one time, what I got frustrated with when I was in your seat was the fact that this board, they adopted a personnel policy in 2008, which had a package of benefits. And then I think 5 or 6 times during the intervening years between 2008 and 2024, they increased or added a benefit. But they did it in isolation without looking at the total benefit package. So I think that for us to be informed about this, we need to be looking at, okay, what is the insurance benefit? What are we providing as an HSA match? Part of the reason our HSA match is so high was because we didn't have any of these other insurances, the dental, the vision, the life. And if you go back and look when the HSA was adapted, that was the rationale for that size contribution was the absence of those policies. And, you know, if I was an employee, I'd rather have a very high HSA and not have these coverages. But that's just me. But
What the
we
current
can't
employees saying.
evaluate it without looking at what all the other benefits are, including paid vacation, including sick leave, including all the things that are considered employee benefits. We need to look at the totality. And that's been my position from the get-go on this. I said, I started this out with what I believe, which is I'm supportive of this, but I don't think it's fair to ask the board to consider it.
The vacation would be involved in the personnel policy revisions. I mean, that would be the recommendation during the
We
review.
need to look at all the employee benefits at once. Because you can mix and match to try to come up with an optimal package. When you just look at this in isolation, this is like zero-sum game. You either provide it or you don't provide it. Right?
I did.
I appreciate that you believe that, and I appreciate that the employees wrote that, but if the choice was, employees will provide these coverages, but your HSA match goes down to $1,000 a year. You know, what would the choice be then? I don't know. But we have to look at it all together, not just one benefit in isolation. I personally want to keep the HSA amount where it is.
Fine.
I personally want to add these benefits. But I also don't think it's fair to ask this board to look at these in isolation. But we've had this conversation 3 or 4 times, and I've been in the same place every time. So.
Got some questions while we're on this. So like for dental and vision, if it's for major or orthodontic, is it 100% coverage? Is it 50% covered, partial for employee pay? What does the program look like?
It's like 80% to a certain dollar amount. 1,500, I believe.
Remember, Jim?
I don't, I mean,
You probably did the most studying in that.
yeah, maybe I should talk. So let me start out by saying I love our employees and I think they deserve terrific benefits, just flat out. We had the benefit of having our neighbors to the north, Park Township, hired a company called Municipal Consulting Services LLC in February of 23, so a couple years old. They did a $40,000, I understand it, study of benefits and salaries to help Park Township figure out if their numbers were right, if they had the right benefits and salaries. 13 governments, and the consultant picked ones that were about the same size as Park Township. We're about a little over 6,000 people. Park is triple our size, about 18,000. They interviewed Byron Township, Cascade Charter, City of Grand Haven, City of Zeeland, Delhi Charter, DeWitt Charter, Genesis Township, and all of these are, and it goes on and on. The only one that was smaller was the City of Zeeland, and they were about our size, slightly 1,000 less than us. So very detailed information, 13 West Michigan townships, I'll say all bigger than us. What I've noticed is the larger the government entity in population, typically the better the benefits are. If you look at the state of Michigan, they're unbelievable. If you look at the counties, they're crazy good. As you go down in size, typically the benefits tend to be a little bit less. So I think after analyzing how we compare to these 13 local townships and a couple cities, we're currently very strong in our benefits that we provide our people. I would say very strong.
Benefits.
Um,
You need to look at the entire package.
and I did, and I looked at all of it. And so the one thing that I think we have to begin to think about, because even back then, and I would bet that it's higher now, but even back in 2023, the majority, 9 of the 12 municipalities, like Park Township, required some premium cost sharing on the base plan. We have not asked our people to share any of the costs of the premiums. That frankly is the way of the world. That's the way it's going with all, both private and public. I spent hours and hours researching in every which way what the current state of benefits are, both in government. Really, I only focused on government because the private sector doesn't matter in this conversation, other than the majority of our tax-paying residents are working in the private sector, and they're all getting hit with higher premiums regularly.
Incentives and bonuses. I mean, you can't really compare them apples to apples.
So there's a couple areas like the HSA contribution where we are way higher than anyone else in the study. Mr. Ringelberg pointed that out.
But
I
they
also
also
pointed out that part of the reason it's
Contribute to the
higher
retiree health savings
Right.
account.
is because when they
You didn't have
adopted,
those other things.
we didn't have any of these other things. And that's why I don't want to look at these things in isolation. And I appreciate the idea of people, employees contributing to their premiums. But I've also worked for employers before where when people had to contribute to their insurance, there are certain people who opt out because they just don't want to pay that $100 or whatever. When one of them gets sick, you know what you do for a year? You run fundraisers to pay for their medical care. I believe that people should have insurance, and I don't think that people should have to pay part of the premium to get it. I just think it's a good thing to have, and we should provide it. That said, I think the only way talking about these, should they have these or not, in isolation, just hits me the wrong way. And I think it's all part of the total package. And I think it's smart to look at all the benefits at the same time.
And I do want to give credit to Manager Fox for the great work she did on the conversion of the 457 over to MERS. I think that helps all of our employees significantly. And so that was, I think that was a great thing to do that. And so we all benefit, anyone that's in that program. It's now a 401B, I think. A 401A, 457 that was with Northwestern Mutual is ended. Correct?
You can do the 457.
And you
still.
can leave your money there and convert it into some sort of annuity if you wanted to, but I think most people have
Up to each individual employee.
taken the money out and getting a little bit of a penalty for doing that.
We also have the right to contribute to a 457 at.
And that is also, yes, you could have both now if you wanted both. The other thing that I saw was our match is on the higher end of the 13 townships. I think only 2 were higher. So it's generous, it's strong. I get it that there's a couple obscure benefits or insurance things that nobody understands that are on that chart that somebody else might have. But, and if our vacation time is wrong, you should bring that to us
That's going to be.
and tell us it's not competitive. if we're not, that's something I think we'd be all ears to.
Yeah, in the revision
Understand
of the
if we're
personnel
not.
policy, that'll be a recommendation to look at the vacation.
But I will tell you that I would support this recommendation with the caveat that when our next premium notices come from Priority, that the board has a discussion and we decide if it's appropriate or not to have some level of cost sharing. And I know Supervisor Ringelberg isn't for that. I don't see anybody dropping insurance because they have to pay $100 for something that's worth $9,000 if you had to buy, or $20,000 if you
I
had
think
to
some
buy it on your own.
employees would opt out.
They're gonna go with no insurance?
Oh,
They would never get it as affordably, even if they had to pay $100.
their spouse gets it, they may.
Anyway, does anybody want to make a motion? I mean, I would make a motion, if there was a motion on the floor to adopt this, my motion would be to table it. But nobody's made a motion to adopt it.
Well, I agree with what you said, Supervisor Engelberg. I think I would like to revisit this. I want to make it clear to the staff that we care about this. We're not saying no to it. This is a big deal for what they do for us. But that being said, help me out a little bit with the motion. We're basically instructing Manager Fox to give us a complete benefit package analysis with PTO to analyze the complete package and vote on adopting the proposed additional benefits. Is that?
Make that your motion.
I think that's my motion.
I need that restated.
That was, I should be closer to the mic. My motion is you're going to direct Manager Fox to reinvestigate and distribute the full entire benefits package along with paid PTO and distribute that to the board for further review to make a future vote on accepting the proposed benefit additions. I should put a date on there, I feel like.
The September regular meeting.
On the September regular meeting, the 10th.
I'll support that.
So motion by Trustee Timmerman, seconded by what's your name? Treasurer Johnson. Jim, do you have that written down or you want some help?
I can go back to the recording and get the fire. What I do have is direct Manager Fox to investigate and you said.
Investigate and provide the complete benefit package, including paid PTO, and distribute it to the board for further review, that we can take a vote on the proposed benefit additions at the September 10 board meeting.
Any further discussion?
No.
When I think of the total benefits, I think of paid time off, sick leave, bereavement leave, all the different kinds of leaves that we have. I think of the HSA contribution. I think of the MPERS retirement fund match. It's not just medical, not just the medical benefits. It's all those non-salary, non-hourly pay benefits that may be available to the employees. That's what I want the whole package to include. And I think that's how I interpret what we're asking for in this motion.
Correct. Yes.
So, as I said, I am supportive of this and the benefits. I don't particularly want to cut any other benefits, but I do want to look at everything and the total cost of everything. I also think Mark had some good questions, like for this cost of dental, what is that? What's the deductible? What's the cap? What's the copay each time? And it would be helpful to understand. I understand, you know, I know vision coverage is not very expensive, but it also doesn't cover much, right?
Typically dental's the same.
Yeah.
It pays for cleanings and maybe a little bit of something major, but that's the typical dental coverage. I don't know if that's what this is or not.
I'm gonna send ours just to you, so you have a format on layout once, but I'll send that your way.
You know, usually if I have this kind of coverage, I can go and ask, how much is my part in all of this? How much do I have to pay? And they're able to tell me, you know, my portion. I don't know if we have that ability with this or not.
Are you talking about deductibles or are you?
Yeah.
talking-
Deductible, yeah.
All that. Is there a max? Is there a point at which you've paid in so much you don't have to do co-pays anymore? All that kinds of information. I also think you ought to flag any insurance where if less than 100% of the employees take it, there may be a price increase. Okay,
Some of them won't even accept it. Yeah.
right, I get it. Because 100% participation, which is what you get when the township pays the full cost, you rarely get someone drop out.
We have a medical opt-out.
We do.
We have people who are salaried.
Like that they
employees.
get paid if they take the opt-out option.
We have been doing that.
Who? We don't do that. We do not do that.
Did that with our employees. If they weren't on the plan, they would just submit their receipts and we were paying it.
We stopped that.
We don't do that.
That's,
We've stopped it maybe, but
Well, if you could find where it's in any policy of Laketown Township or where it's been approved.
maybe
by
that
the
was an
board,
Al thing then. That was
or
never.
it's been approved by the board, that would be the key I went through when I went through that manual with Amy Scolton and with a lot of help from Mr. Hayden, was trying to identify each time the board had voted to add a benefit or change a benefit. Because the employee manual hadn't been updated since 2000, even though the benefits had changed. So we can always go back and find when a benefit got input. And
Would you be in favor of having a medical opt-out if they don't take our insurance, that they get a sum of money?
I don't.
Okay.
It sounded like Mr. Johnson might, but I personally don't. Again, it goes to when you're working with a small group of employees and you want them all to have coverage, because it really torques a whole office out if someone doesn't have coverage and gets sick. It's really hard on the whole system.
What if someone takes their spouse's insurance?
Yeah.
It's of no cost to Laketown Township.
We have an employee who I know used to do that. I don't know if that employee still does.
Should almost be a benefit to opting out.
It impacts our costs per employee when people don't take it. We have such a small group of people that it can, I'm not saying it will, but it can. We're in a pool for most of for the main coverage, so. But
Self-funded?
Hmm?
Self-funded pool?
no, it's the MML pool. Michigan Municipal League.
Good to take a vote.
You clear on what? Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to have the manager prepare the details of the entire employee benefit package alongside a more complete elucidation of the proposed benefit additions. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those in favor, all those opposed, nay. And I didn't say it, but it was part of the motion that we're gonna do this by September 10. I do think that in particular with the fire department not having some of these benefits has a negative impact on recruiting and possibly retention. It's not the only group, but everybody. Where are we, boss?
You took it. You got mine.
That's because I've shuffled it into my papers already. First item of business is, new business is the zoning map ordinance number 222. Michelle Saul, do you want to run us through this, or Mark Timmerman, who's already voted on
I
it?
already asked Michelle during break if she would run us through it.
Would you be able?
That'd be great. Yep, we have the applicant here too. So
Michelle, if you would just tell us what it is and
So the planning commission made a recommendation approval of this request. We've got two adjoining property owners. One property owner owns 1.99 acres. He'd like to have an outbuilding, but he can't because he doesn't have enough property. Our outbuildings are based on the square feet you're allowed based on the size of your property. Most are, and he's in zoned R1. Most R1 is 2.5 acres or larger. His parcel happens to be 1.99 acres, so it was put together prior to our current split things. His adjoining property owner owns 6 to 7 acres and can afford to give him 1/2 acre so that he can put a little bit larger barn on his property. The problem is they're zoned R1 and he only has 250 feet. So to give his neighbor a little bit of property, he needs to have less frontage, and to do that, they have to zone to R1, but they each have to zone to R1 because you can't do a lot line adjustment if you're not in the same zone code. They are in the R1.5 location on our master plan map, so it did meet the 3 Cs required of such a request. This is not an intention to split or create a planned unit development or anything. It's just a friendly agreement between two people that want to do a lot line adjustment, but they can't because of the road frontage.
You may or may not know the answer to this question. It's maybe more one for Don, but if the one party deeds a little bit of his property to the other party, does that person that gave up some land, do they get a little tax break because they have less property?
That would be up to the assessor. Even if they did, the other party's gaining land, so it would be
Right.
even.
It
yeah.
would be a wash for us, but it seems like that would be reasonable, but
There could be instances of uncapping, but again, it's not. Which means it could be, but no, I know the answer. When you add more land, you're taxed on the addition of the value of the land. So. But in any event, it's an assessing question.
okay.
can you do me a favor next time these come up? Just throw the minutes from the plan commission in.
Sure.
We need to know that the plan commission in fact.
they approved it. Everyone approved it.
Yeah,
Yep.
but that's why we have minutes.
Yep.
So. Mr. Lamar, you want to say anything?
I do have a copy of the minutes here if you'd like to see them.
Okay, I looked them up online and I was at the I watched the meeting anyway, so. All right, I'll make a motion that we adopt zoning ordinance number 222, which amends the zoning map as stated in the ordinance for rezone.
We will
Second that.
There you go, Kuman.
Who was first?
It was me.
That was Mike.
Motion by Supervisor Ringelberg, seconded by Trustee Kuman to adopt zoning ordinance number 222, which is a zoning map amendment. Any discussion? Want to add anything?
Just want to remind you, it's a roll call vote.
Any
Thank you.
discussion? Mr. Hayden, you want to call the roll?
Yes.
Johnson?
Aye.
Delaney?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. That passes unanimously. Next item of business. Public transportation millage. Now, as I said before, this board voted 4-0 that we would resume discussion of public transport millage or funding at the August meeting. And I guess my question is, does this board, I put it this way. Mike, you had said there was a whole lot of other information that you would want to have. And I'm just wondering if you could detail what that information is. But my caveat is, if this board, regardless of what that information comes back as, isn't going to prove it, I don't think this board should spend any more time on it.
Well, I think one of the big questions that we had is what would be the amount that we'd even be looking for to put on that millage? If we even went down that road, how many mills is this? We have no idea. And
We
without
have an
that,
idea.
well, do we? Because did we, I feel like we still didn't get that accurate information of how many riders, how much it's going to cost.
But that's what
that
I
kind
want
of
to
stuff.
know, what info, like, I asked Becky at ITA for costs, $26,000 a month.
That's what you'd be looking for, 26,000 a month.
It's basically about 0.45 mils,
What is it? Point what?
4.5. That was what she just said, you know, off the top of her head. But I think the point would be is to go negotiate with Max and go negotiate with ITA and perhaps go to negotiate with ACT to see who would give us the best bang for our buck and who would give us the best service. Right? This isn't about interurban, it's about public transportation, and if this board wants to pursue it. If
I
the
would
board-
agree with that statement there, that this is not about just the interurban, this is about transportation. And listening to Verbeek talk about it today, or Van Beek, it looks like he's gonna look more into it, which is helpful. Which tells me if he thinks that, I mean, he seemed very helpful. I mean, just the fact that he looked into some of your issues and yours and everything else, there's something he might be able to do. And if there's a way that he can increase coverage in this area, why wouldn't we go that direction if that's possible? And like you said, if there's other, transportation companies that we can use that we want to look at, I think we do that. Before we decide if we're going to ask everyone to vote on that, we really got to find out what is the best scenario. Because yes, obviously if ACT can increase their coverage, well, that's the best for us because we're paying for it already. We wouldn't be asking everyone to pay more for that. But
I think that's the question we got to get.
That's the question, because what Craig has been really clear about, Commissioner Van Beek has been really clear about with me, is that ACT is currently very resource constrained. He does not currently see a way to improve that, but he will be looking for ways that perhaps they can do that in the future. But there's nothing on the horizon. There's nothing that is going to change in the short term. I know in my discussions with ACT, I've tried to persuade them to stage a bus up here. Like, why do your buses have to go back to the bus barn in Allegan every night? We are not the only community in northern Allegan County without public transportation. Fillmore next door doesn't have it.
Right.
Dogtuck is covered. Park is covered because Park contracts with Max. And it's interesting, they're covered with Max on the north side of the lake, but not on the south side.
I'm really interested to hear from Treasurer Sen, and I'll preface, I appreciate, I think it was 3 months ago, between you and Supervisor Ringelberg, you brought this to our attention that, hey, we're talking about it. Because you know that 3 people who are on the same sign seem to be opposed to it, but just the fact that you brought it up months in advance, I greatly appreciate that. And Steve, I gotta say, I'm impressed with your radio show. I think you're up there with free beer and hot wings on the van. But my hang up on this, I'm not opposed to re-talking about it. What my opposition is I didn't feel we had sufficient facts on riders missing rides and that ACT denied them to say we have a problem. I also have a major hang up with the pricing structure that it was last left when we talked with the interurban that there was no adjustability on pricing. And I have a tough time putting a blanket $26,000 out there and approving that, knowing we're paying for folks from Illinois, we're paying for people who really have the means to drive themselves or do an Uber, and we're just blankly putting a check out there saying, yep, that's okay. We believe in public transit and we're going to fund it. That's what does
Well, the
not
question
sit
is
right
whether
with me.
we should let the voters of Laketown Township vote on whether they want to fund it.
I have a tough time putting it out to a vote without having a solid price structure that I feel comfortable I would approve myself. Yeah, if you don't mind,
Sure,
I haven't got a
yeah.
chance to talk with you and
I mean, I've given this a lot of thought, and I know my current opinion differs from my friend Kevin Afferink, and hopefully he'll still be nice to me when I see him at the barge, but I do think that we should let the voters decide. I just think for us to block that, to stand in the way, and I know there's a bunch of people that think it should never get on a ballot, but I also believe there's a bunch of people that would really like it. And I don't think any of us sitting here know what that breakdown is. I do believe that the people that don't want to see it on the ballot are the vocal minority. That's my opinion. But we will never know if we don't put it on the ballot, whether the people of Laketown want it or don't want it. And why should we prejudge what the people of Laketown either want or don't want? What I do think is that we ought to have a serious conversation with Becky and the interurban and get the best possible deal we can. And if it means we only have to levy 0.3 mil, that's pretty damn good. The people of, Saugatuck and Douglas just approved 1 mil, and they went from 0.5 mil to 1 mil for the interurban, just the interurban. We would be significantly less mills than they are. I don't know what that number is though yet. And I know Supervisor Ringelberg's been talking with them. But I think if it could come in the quarter mil, 0.3, 0.35, I don't know what the number is. That's the thing. But I think the people of Laketown ought to have a voice on it and let them decide whether they want it or not.
The only thing I have to say to that is when you say, who are we? We're the ones that were elected by everyone in Laketown. So we do have.
Yeah, but
We can decide.
we
on
should
that.
all-
And I think that's where we need to step in and we need to be the ones that decide. Is one option better than the other option? Like we said, I'm not completely against, transportation services. It's which one is going to be the best value for the residents in our township. That's our job as board members, as trustees, that we sit here because we were elected to speak on their behalf.
Yeah.
That is why we're here. So I don't disagree with you that I think there could come a time where we let the residents, vote on that, but I think it's up to us to decide what they're going to be voting on. And that is got to be the best value in what we come up with. So I think we need to take some more time, figure out if, Commissioner can come up with something, if he has something up his sleeve, if he knows something more, find out more information on the other, transit businesses around here. Get that information before we even think about asking people to vote on it. So I don't know what time frame that is.
I agree with you if you're considering value is what you get, not what you pay. So, if the Allegan County Transportation is less money, but you got to call 3 days in advance and they say there's a 50% chance we're going to get there or not. And it's just not a reliable, timely service, but yeah, it's less money. That's not a value to me.
Right, but how do we know that
At the
information?
poor
How do we know
business
that?
model for ACT not to say, hey, interurban, we'll give you some change here. It's inefficient for us.
That's what they do. Interurban does a lot of pickups for ACT and they do them in Laketown Township because ACT pays them to do it.
Business sense right there. And we pay taxes to Allegan for it. Sorry, I didn't mean to, but I don't know. What's the next steps forward here, guys?
What I can't tell you just from my discussions with both Max and ITA is not one of them is going to let Laketown Township dictate to them their rates, how much they charge per ride. I also don't know that we're the best suited people to do that. We don't run a transportation company. I think where they're willing to work from us and reduce costs would be, it might be possible to get service only Monday through Fridays. It might be possible to not have the Friday and Saturday night services so that the focus is really more on people who need it for work or people who need it for medical appointments and things like that. But they don't want to be the ones who are sitting there saying, do I charge this person $5 because it's this type of rider? Or do I charge them more? They already have a problem when they take people to the vineyards in Benville because they have to charge them more for that. That's really simple for them. If you're going to this location, you pay more. But for the type of trip it is, I need to go to downtown Saugatuck. They don't want the driver of the bus interrogating you. Are you going to the drugstore? Are you going for a medical appointment? Are you going out for lunch? What are you doing on that trip? That is not the role they play. And so that there are some limits on the ability, like, they don't even want to collect the data about what people are doing at the end of a ride. They don't want to know. They don't discriminate among riders based on what their intended activity is at their destination. And they don't want to put their drivers in the position that they're somehow trying to make a judgment on that. So anyway, just recognize that if you wanted to control it all, you build your own transportation company and you buy your own buses.
And I think thank you for saying that, because if I was them and a board came and said, hey, we want you to change your rates just for us, I'd probably say go pound sand, but that's just me, unless they really want our business. What I never heard of through the fact finding, and probably didn't articulate in my first comments, was I haven't once heard I reached out to ACT, tried to book a ride, and they couldn't fulfill it. And it's happening this percentage of the time. It turns out the majority of what I heard or interpreted from the people was, we want interurban. We never tried ACT. So how are we supposed to know we're being financially responsible with the funds we already pay to Allegan, but the service is not providing? And we have statistical data to say we have a need out here. We have a need for people in our community that ACT is not fulfilling. It was always the opposite, that we want interurban, but we never got true facts to say ACT is doing a terrible job. We didn't have, and if that was the case, how far did we reach to Allegan County to make sure that that changed and gave them a fair shot?
I think there's a bad taste left in people's mouths because they are already paying taxes for transportation. And this is kind of like what they're looking at. This is like double dipping. You know, I'm paying tax for this, and then now we're going to have a millage for that. You know, just leaves a bad taste in people's mouth. They don't want to do that. They don't want to pay that extra tax. So
Then they should vote no. I think
they don't even want it to come up to a vote. So
experientially, there's a big difference between calling and getting a response, 30 to 40 minutes later, and having to call 1, 2, 3 days in advance. That is a fundamentally, you are going to get fewer calls to ACT simply because of the lead time.
I'm looking at ACT right now, and it says how to schedule a ride. Deadline, request your trip by noon the day before you need to travel. I don't know if that's good enough. I know it's a lot different than the interurban.
It all depends on what you're using it for. If you're using it for a doctor appointment, you know when your doctor appointment is way ahead of
You
time.
probably do.
If you're using it to get to some school event, you know exactly when that's going to be. Now, if you're using it to go downtown Saugatuck because you want to go drinking with your friends, you should talk to your friends and line up your plans, way prior. But I think it's all doable. You have to plan ahead. People don't like.
it's all about planning ahead. That's what it is.
So I'm a no vote at this point. I don't feel
So I guess
financially
Back
responsible.
back to my first, there's nothing to vote on.
We're not.
My question was, what would this board like to know before they revisit this topic again? And because what we got to do is tell the manager, this is the information we need found out for us. This is the scope of it, and this will inform our judgment about whether we would want to put any funding for public transportation up to a vote.
So specifically, Manager Fox, what I would like to know is I want pure data from ACT on when they denied rides. And they have 3 different tiers of that. And I would highly encourage the people who utilize those transportation sources to try ACT, get denied so they can report it, so we can have the data to do something about it. And if ACT continues to fail,
Good walk with Bruno.
then we have a need to re-talk about this and possibly put it on for a vote.
I would like to know, if Max is available and the details of what they, like, what their costs are gonna be, what they charge, what their distance is, how they charge. You know, what they would service out here. Will they go just to us and then back into Holland? Will they go outside of that? That's the kind of information, you know, because if Max is, it's like you said, Max doesn't serve Southside Park, you know, on this
There's a
side.
reason,
Yeah, well.
which is
maybe-
they don't
maybe-
want to.
Yeah, they don't want to, but, you know.
And when I went to them originally, they just said, we don't have the capacity to do Laketown Township.
Max says that.
Yeah, but things change. They get more buses.
I mean,
they
I'd
get
still
more
like to know
time.
what the rates are, like how their system works, you know?
They have one contractor, and that's Park Township. The rest of the communities are all members of the Max community, the Max board, and they all pay the same millage.
I mean, obviously something to think about too is that we are in the works of adding 2 large residential areas off of 60th, which are going to bring in a few thousand people, I'm guessing, by the time
No.
it's all done.
No, don't wish that. Was your figures, Supervisor Engelberg, was your figure when you went on Mills 26,000 for,
What I was quoted by ITA for service next year, if we wanted service next year, was $26,000 a month, right?
we could build a nice barn and have ACT park a vehicle here. Okay, so how do we want to solve this though?
Well, what I would like people to do is tell the manager the information they'd like found out. Let's give the manager, till February or something to find it out. And only revisit it if we have those materials in front of us.
I like that. Can we agree on February? I think, would that be enough time to get the data that we might need between now and then?
Don't know.
What do you think, Stephanie, when you think about your schedule? You have other things.
That'd be
you have
6
to do.
months. That'd be 6 months, basically.
Yeah, because December, January doesn't count.
Right.
It really doesn't.
So I got February.
I know that we have put, I should say, I believe, we have put, I saw it. Mr. Hayden put something in the newsletter that goes to everybody about Allegan County transportation, or was it on the website?
It's like both. He did a good
So
job.
could we put something in the newsletter and or website that goes out that asks people to give us their feedback, as, remind them that there is Allegan County transportation, kind of how it works, and let them know that Laketown is evaluating the service to determine if it meets our needs, something along those lines.
Not a bad idea. Just
And-
feedback.
And to try book with them.
Yeah. And
Try book with them if they have a need,
Maybe
just so
I'm
we
gonna-
can get denied.
Yeah, maybe I'm gonna call them
Just
and
to-
try. I mean, the problem is finding the guinea pigs that will try it.
Sorry, Jim.
Ask people to purposely call a service to get their ride denied.
Not if it's a luxury, not if it's a luxury ride.
That's
Right.
not crazy for me to, as a professional, to ask people that.
No, who asked you?
We could rephrase that better. We could rephrase that. Rephrase, absolutely.
Rephrase.
I wouldn't,
rephrase how
I
we
wouldn't
put it.
expect you to put that in there, but
Not worded like
but if we're to get data, we need data that ACT has denied rides.
It's not even you just need the data. Are people getting rides? are they not getting rides? I mean, I don't know if.
And
you're-
how many people are calling for rides?
Right, exactly.
And
That's.
are they calls for medical trips or because
Right.
if you're.
Sorry,
doing a
Jim,
medical
I didn't
trip-
mean that.
I do think promoting it ACT in the newsletter, I do think asking people their opinion about whether or not they'd like to have a voice vote on public transportation funding. And I think that's worth doing. So, one of the things that just happened is that because the millage passed in Saugatuck Douglas and Saugatuck Township is that interurban service will now include Family Fair in Holland, the transit station at the Padnos Transportation Center, Evergreen Commons, and the Holland Aquatic Center. All right. What I don't really think is a worthwhile use of Stephanie's time is to send her out to try to negotiate a deal with ITA or Max without any funding. I think she could ask them for round numbers, which is what I did without negotiating. But to try to negotiate a contract when you don't have any funding for it, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, we don't really need to negotiate anything yet. Like you said, they're not gonna want us to try to dictate what their rates are.
Yeah.
And what it's gonna be, but to know, okay, straight up, you wanna come into here, what would you charge us? You know, what would make it worth your?
Okay, so you have the cost from ITA though for next year, right? It's $26,000.
That was just off the top of her head, literally on a flyby. So, and like I said, I didn't negotiate that at all, but 26 comes out to 316,000, which is roughly 0.4 mils, 0.45.
The interurban will let us have a lower millage rate than the city of town.
We would not be part of the Interurban Transit Authority. We would simply be contracting for services. We could fund it out of the general fund.
Right, but I want to make sure that interurban isn't saying that we would have to match the 1 mil.
I'll say it again. That's what they're willing to do to provide us with the services on a contract basis, not as a member of the Interurban Transit Authority. Part of it is when you recognize that even at our maximum usage, Laketown riders, pickups and drop-off represented less than 10% of the total ridership of the interurban. It doesn't make sense for us to pay the same as the communities that have had the interurban for 45 years plus. Are heavy, heavy users of it. So. And but getting a rough number from the Max would be good if they're even interested in it at this time. The Max ran into trouble because their metropolitan area that they started to serve, they inadvertently ticked over to a larger population size, which then disqualified them from certain small cities and village and rural transportation grants. They lost a bunch of grant money because they got too big. And I think they want to be careful about that kind of stuff. Do we need to put this in a motion for you or? Okay. I move that the information that the manager be asked to research and provide information no later than the regular board meeting in February concerning public transportation options for Laketown Township, including the cost service potentially from Max in Holland down into Laketown Township, from ITA into Laketown Township, and any other potential public transportation options. In addition, to continue to try to get information from ACT about the number of calls for service from Laketown and the number of those calls that were met within the desired timeframe.
Yeah, you got it. You said it.
Motion by Ringelberg, supported by Timmerman.
Can
Did you
get all
Jim?
that?
Any further discussion? I just want to say, I really wish we had voted to put 0.45 on the ballot for a millage in November. Because then we could either know we had the money or we don't have the money. And then we could go do what will be a whole lot of work and a lot of hard negotiations to get the best deal. If it didn't pass, then there was a whole lot of work that would not have to get done. That said, any other further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. That passes 5-0. Planning Commission, Mr. Timmerman, is there anything we should know?
Hold on.
What?
Wanted to add something. or
Oh, yeah.
We added it.
B, right? The vehicle policy.
Yeah, yep.
Oh, vehicle policy.
So I would like to make a motion to add approving manager Fox to draft a company vehicle policy with track invoices for the board to vote on at the September 10 meeting. Too soon for you?
Probably. Well, wait a minute. Maybe I can include it in the personnel policy revision. Does that work?
That's where it would end up.
Yeah, so I think.
Can I suggest that you just deleted a word?
Yeah.
Personal use of township vehicle policy.
Good with that? Yes.
Mark's motion is to direct the manager to create a policy concerning personal use of township-owned vehicles by staff or board members or whoever. And that she have such policy to present to the Laketown Township Board by the September meeting, and that policy include provision for utilizing GPS tracking technology to keep track of where Laketown-owned vehicles are.
I'll second that.
Motion by Timmerman, seconded by Kuman. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. That passes 5-0. Thanks for catching that. I didn't remember to do D. First,
Planning Commission updates.
just if there's something we need to know.
There's a lot, but this is like a planning commission meeting, so we don't want to make it too long. Laketown 71, that's by the fire station. We took a look at the traffic yield plan. They're gonna come back to us with a couple asks that we had of them, but getting really close to saying yay or nay to it. So that's a big development. The PUD review, we tabled that. Short-term rental regulation, we did dive into that. Pat and Michelle, I gotta give Michelle a lot of credit here. Provided a draft that we reviewed. I would encourage you guys to take a look at that. Well as at some point we need to be starting to talk about enforcement and budgetary for that. So we're getting there. Any questions? Yes, please. please. Yeah.
We also gave a 1-year extension to exit 41 PUD, which is a commercial planned unit development. The reason for that is tried very hard to get their water approval for a water application from Laketown Township. That township has asked for additional construction information that they are providing. So
Cordite, am I saying?
yes, yep, that's the name of the owner of the land. Heads up that we will be having a PUD application in September for Covenant 7, and they are titling that application Laketown Green.
And that's sort of between 147 and 146, just to the west of 60th Street.
Correct.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
While you're there,
Yeah.
do you know what, I just noticed the other day, corner of 64th and 146th on the northeast corner, there's a sign that says lots for sale. Are you familiar with what's happening?
Yeah, that was a rezone request that came before the board earlier this year. The gentleman who owns that land, he had owned a small, maybe 3 acres, but he was adjacent to his mother who passed away. She had a small farm home on 14 acres. So he did a lot line adjustment to absorb more of the land and then split the farmhouse back off on 3 acres. So he kind of reversed. And then he was zoned R1, but he's in the R2 zoning district. And so his land was more valuable than he had realized. And so we worked with him through the process of how to get that rezoning done, which allowed him then to get a couple splits off that. So that really helped him. It helps him keep his family land and brings him a little bit of income. So yep, they just went up for sale. Sure. And it's not a planned unit development. They have exact road frontage right off of 146. I think there's one lot that touches 64th, but the other 3. And I think the farm home is on an acre that already sold. And then there's 2 or 3 lots that are, I think one came up for
Right.
sale out of
There's
the.
that white house, and it was for sale, and I saw it pending or sold or something.
Yeah, yep, that sold right away. I think it, so that's encouraging. And then I think he had wanted to hang on to 2 of those lots just for financial security. But I think he put one of the other 3 up for sale. So we've got a lot of interest.
Thank you, Michelle.
Office. Thank you.
ZBA didn't meet. Public comments. Anybody in the room? Seeing no one, if there's someone online who'd like to speak to the Board of Trustees, please unmute yourself.
Yes, hello. Hello.
Speak up.
Hello, I would like to speak if possible. This is David Vanderslice, and there's one word I would like to express to you guys tonight, and that is transparency. And I think the facts are finally coming out about public transportation in Laketown tonight. And Supervisor Ringelberger, before these facts came out, wanted to put a millage vote to the residents of Laketown Township. And I find there again, the horse is behind the cart. I think there was a lot of good stuff said tonight about the possibility of the max. Supervisor Ringelberger talks about making Laketown Township retirement friendly. 95% of that is doctor's offices and going to like athletic centers in Holland Township and the new one that the city of Holland is going to build. The max is going to support that way better than interurban. That's some facts that came out tonight. And the problem I have with Laketown Township Board, like I said, is transparency. The numbers should be in front of everybody before this even gets thought about being voted on. And I would like honest numbers, the actual cost of running a bus. And everything I look online, it's about $220 an hour. And Laketown loves to say it's 50 cents or $2. And everybody here just got done listening to all the politicians, red and blue, say about all the free stuff they're going to give to their people. And I see this extending to the township. And I want honesty with transportation, with recycling. What are the actual numbers? What does recycling look like? How much is being recycled? What does it cost per run? And I don't get that from anybody in Laketown Township, the board, or the people working there. And I think that is very a disservice to the residents when this happens. And like I said, you guys are just starting at looking at some numbers. $312,000 a year for the interurban. Okay, what's a rough number that the max would be, and what is a true number of sending a bus to somebody's house? Okay, we're actually already paying for this service to a certain amount because interurban and the max are funded by state and federal money. So we're already paying for a portion of this service. Not that I still want it, but going forward with any of these projects, I know recycling is going to have to be going up to a vote. And I have yet to see any numbers on cost per run, how much it costs per ton to get rid of this stuff, what is actually being recycled. And I look forward to seeing the newsletters, and there's no facts in there. There's nothing that a voter is going to sit there and say, hey, I want this or don't want this based on these numbers. And going forward, I think there was good conversation tonight about public transportation. Besides the 312,000, there was no real number stated, but we should have a year of this talk and then get a big piece of paper with all the numbers available before we go to the voters for a vote. And I'm 100% happy that we didn't vote on this, because otherwise we're voting on public transportation and everybody just feels good about this. Let me finish with saying I had an experience this week with public transportation. I was working at the condos by Tower Marina, and there were some guys there, and they were mixing their protein drinks, and they decided it was too hot to walk less than 1/10 of a mile to the pool, so they wanted the interurban to come pick them up. And I had to keep my mouth shut because I was working there. But I'm like, is that really a function of the government to bring people to pools? And the interurban from Laketown to Saugatuck, 98% of that, besides that little doctor's office on Blue Star, is going to be for recreational use. And like I said, the percentage of actual doctors or useful stuff is going to be on the Holland side. So, I mean, there's a lot of numbers to be looked at, and actual numbers of what it costs to run that bus to somebody's house. I would love to see. And so going forward, can we please have numbers and facts and statistics, not just hype to vote on?
Thanks, Dave. Anybody else online? Just for the record, I want to point out my doctor's office is in Douglas, my pharmacy is in Saugatuck, my physical office is in Douglas, and Saugatuck Township is where I go to get my blood tests and my x-rays. I also think we have almost from south of 138th, really south of Island Lake Road, if you took that straight east, every one of the people who live in Laketown Township on both the east and the west side of the expressway all have a Saugatuck address. Every child in precinct 3 is part of the Saugatuck School District. So the reason we hear from people about wanting access to public transportation in Saugatuck, not everybody, is there are a lot of people who are oriented to Saugatuck. There are also a lot of people oriented to Max, which was why the first call I made when people started asking for public transportation was to Max. So, any further business for the board?
Or people that want to.
Nobody's unmuted themselves.
Yep.
I also have only ever taken the interurban once. That was to take Stephanie on a tour. That's the only time I've ever used it. So, How about a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Report.
Motion to adjourn by trustee Cooman, supported by treasurer Johnson. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Hayden.